to fruition on what he would actually be upset about until now. Now, the gas is going to a certain level, is going sky high, you see what I'm saying? And now all these people are trapped with all these big gas
What
customers.
this book does, Are You Still a Slave? It's a test workbook. It's 50 questions, true and false. There are no trick questions, and it's designed to let us find out if we are practicing slavery, self-induced now, since we no longer have a slave master, without, any outside intervention. If we are still doing the things that we did in slavery that impact upon our lifestyle today.
You said a couple of things, and you feel free to jump right in. The first thing you say is, we've never resolved it. When you say we, the black community, the black-white community, America, the world.
Well, that's part of it not being resolved. We keep expecting, something because we experienced that trauma, because our ancestors experienced that trauma. We want some sympathy. We want the 40 acres and a mule. We want some kind of therapy. We want something for it, and we've never even really gotten any recognition for it. It's unresolved between us because it represents so much pain that it makes us embarrassed, it makes us ashamed about it, and so we would rather fluff it over and repress it and say forget about it. But that history still lives in us, and while we can say that biological traits are transmitted through regular heredity, cultural ideas are also transmitted, and right now we are living with many of those slavery ideas that we have never resolved. And we
go through, and you get to a point where it goes, imagine what it would feel like. A place you've never been, you don't know if you're going to be able to stay or go. Imagine what it must feel like living in these quarters. I'm looking at the quarters, and these are like bunks, hammocks, 2 sinks. Looks pretty good to me. Right? I'm going, imagine what those non-voluntary immigrants experience. And if you're going to put this picture up, put that one up too. How dare you ignore, because you want me to empathize. You want me to feel the struggle and the suffering and the fear, and I'm okay with that. But who cries for them? The 10,000 buried in the African burial ground that's not on the tour. Where is the empathy for them? Where is the headphones saying, imagine, not only not wanting to go, not knowing where you're going to go, and having your children, your wives, your people raped in front of you. Imagine that. Not wanting to go and not knowing where you're going. Where is the picture there? They were issued into another room where they say, and then they underwent medical prodding to determine if they were fit to stay or they were going to be sent back. And in this case, and I look closely because you know me, I look closely because I said, possibly could it be 1800s? We got to find J. Marion Sims in here, and surely his speculum is there. The speculum used to evaluate European women coming through. But did they tell you when they showed you Sims' instruments, the one who's standing in Central Park, that those instruments were developed by experimenting on black women? No, you see, that's not said. It just says, look at this instrument he developed, and these poor women had to undergo these sorts of examinations. Do you see?
Segregation. We're 50 years into Brown, and we've resegregated. Why? Because white people don't like black people and don't want to live with them, and sure don't want to go to school with them.
The term supremacy, or white supremacy, where you have a people who, in their heart, in their mind, in their soullessness, believe that they are the ideal human, that they believe that they are superior to all the people, and they believe that what they do, how they act, how they think, is the best possible model of human behavior. So by default, from that thinking, whether it's conscious or subconscious, for some of them it's conscious, for some of them it's subconscious, by default, from that thinking, you automatically attempt to move other people in the direction of your thought and behavior. It doesn't have to be consciously doing this. You just automatically. It reminds me when I was at Morehouse and we were getting ready to take a trip, and a van needed to be rented to go, and the white female faculty in the department will say, well, you can go and rent the vehicle. And I said, well, no, I can't rent the vehicle because I don't carry credit cards. And her expression was, something was psychologically wrong with me for not having a credit card. She didn't voice it in that way, but she knew that something was wrong with my response. Why don't you have a credit card? There's something wrong with it. Don't you know that we created these and it's for the good of us, blah, blah, blah.
And they even took this brother's life for this work. So you should take this work and really break it down and see what it is to cause the powers to be to take our brother's life. He's a martyr for our revolution. And you should honor this brother and many other brothers and sisters that have given their life so that we could come today and take the information and use it for our freedom movement.
Coffle lines. They were called the coffle lines, the collections of us, the groups of us that were marched across the continent. Most of us came from West Africa, the area of Ghana and that general area. But we were walked across in what was called coffle lines. And again, we are confused because someone else's story. Yes, we were captured in battle. Yes, some of us were kidnapped. Yes, some of us were sold as slaves. And of course, we'll have to deal with that question also because that is a major victim blaming logic that we have. Africans enslaved other Africans. Africans helped Europeans. And in fact, Africans, it ends up with the argument that Africans were wholly responsible. We did this to ourselves. Yeah. Europeans took us off of our own hands to help us, to civilize us. But we're not going there right now. The coffle lines were where we came in. We were kidnapped. We were we were taken as slaves. We were sold by Africans and other Europeans. We were also taken from the campuses of the colleges and the schools that we had on the campus. We had colleges, just like before integration in this country. We had dental schools, we had medical schools, we had law schools here that were black schools. So we were taken off of also the college campuses in West Africa. It wasn't just folks running around trying to dig up some roots. We were taken from all areas. And Europeans, being the systematic people that they are, they were trying to build a nation. They were trying to build a nation, so they needed skilled labor.
Talked to their people and treated their people as if they themselves were Nazis and became allies with their captors against the interests of their fellow prisoners. Again, of course, we are seeing people who are seeking to escape their pain and guilt and shame by trying to become one with their persecutors, who think then that if they can become one, they will escape from their persecution. This is when we're dealing with fantasies. And yet, those people under that camp did not get rescued from their pain. They were still in prison. They still helped to maintain their people in prison and work against the interests of their own people and ultimately against their own interests. We have a bunch of people here today in this country who are in a similar position.
Never focus on doing business, talking about diversity, multicultural, people of color, minorities. That has no benefit for black folk. You got to understand that. Once you do that, you've done several things. First of all, you tied one arm behind your back. You cannot fight in a broad, ambiguous form. Nobody does that but black folk. Anybody who's been in politics long enough and economics understands you must do business in a very pointed way. When you go into the marketplace like women don't go into the marketplace looking for very broad agendas. Women go into the marketplace fighting for women issues. Gays fight for gay issues. Hispanics fight for Hispanic issues. Asians fight for Asian issues. Only black folk have been hung up on this business about going into the marketplace fighting for diversity, multicultural, minorities, poor folk, and people of color. It won't work any longer.
Just one type of Negro, as they like to call them, but they decided there was the classical Negro. And so they worked out the cranial measurements for the classical Negro, and they said there were 36% Negroes. But there was a large body, almost 35% brown Mediterranean. Who are these brown Mediterraneans? Those people who do not fit very nicely into true Negroes, and yet are not Caucasoids because they allow 11% Cro-Magnon, which is Caucasoid, and the rest they didn't know about. And then Falkenberger did that, William McIver did that. Diop showed if I were to take those measurements and take them into the graveyards of Africa, everybody is a brown Mediterranean. And Chatterjee and Kumar, in a study in 1965, showed that crania found in Nubia, pre-dynastic Egypt, and crania studied in the Old Kingdom in Egypt, and crania studied in the 12th and 13th dynasty had the same features. In other words, if those people are brown Mediterraneans, then the Nubians are brown Mediterraneans. And the many Africans would be simply reclassified as brown Mediterraneans. Why was it so important? Nobody in Europe ever doubted that the Egyptians were Africans until the 19th century. The early 19th century, the Greeks clearly knew them as Africans. They saw them. They were not speculating. They walked among them. They fought with them. They conquered them, they lived with them, they studied under them, and they said they were black-skinned and woolly-haired.